Okay, so what is this? This is going to tie into this valve, which is the new one that we just put in. I mean, I'm just going to assume it works. It's new. Hopefully it works. We'll get to this in just a minute. So here is the charcoal vapor canister. Let's see, FU5A-9D 653-AES1. So this is out of a 2015 F-150 2.7 Echo Boost. And this mounts, this is what I was telling you is mounted underneath the driver door on the frame. This is the charcoal canister. So when you're putting fuel in your tank, it fills up in the tank. The air has to go somewhere. So the air actually, let's hope you can see these. The air comes back into this line right here, goes through this charcoal filter here, and comes out this hole right here, which goes up into this chamber. And this valve is sealing this chamber from in here. So when this valve is closed, this chamber is sealed off, and the only outlet, excuse me, I'll explain the water in a minute, is in this way from the tank, from the vapors, and out this way to the front of the engine to be reburnt into the intake. So the small hose goes to the engine. The large hose is the vent coming from the tank. So let me set the canister to the side for a minute. And this is the cap, and I washed it out. There's no filter in here. It's just an open chamber for the vapors to come up into. So when this is open, it allows vapors from the chamber, the main charcoal filter, to come up into this area, which it comes in through the bottom, and it exits around this rim, which is in line with the opening at the bottom of this, which comes up into this chamber, then out through this chamber here to the vent, to atmosphere. And this hose runs to the back, up to the side of the filler neck, and just has a cap on top of it. Now I can blow through that line, and dust and stuff blew out. Tons of dust was in here, and tons of dust is in the vacuum, the charcoal filter. So it's not stopped up, and I'll explain all of that in just a minute. So I don't know what this chamber is, but it comes off and it can be replaced. I was thinking that maybe this was some form of last ditch filter of some sort. It seems to be, and it may be, there may be some kind of a filter, like a charcoal mesh type filter that's in here that comes out here. Now, it's just nothing stops me from blowing through it. And I get more water as I do that. So the material, it's like a very porous charcoal mesh in here. And so it's not a sponge, and it's not, I can't get it waterlogged because I can blow through it like nobody's business. And water will come out of that little mesh. So it's like taking a piece of fish webbing and balling it up, kind of. That's what that charcoal mesh thing is in there. But it's not so much of a filter. I think it's just basically to try to keep dust from coming back from the outside vent into this chamber, or to potentially keep dirt daubers and stuff like that, or wasp nests or anything like that, especially if the vehicle sets up. So, and this is a sealed chamber as far as I can tell. I don't see where there's anything that can be serviceable or replaced, which I assume this is a replaceable item, but I don't see where it would get stopped up to the point that you can't wash it out and clean it out. But this had a lot of dust in it, a lot of dust that was captured in that mesh. So on the charcoal filter itself, now let's get back to this. So the fumes come out of the tank to this large line right here. With this closed off, this chamber is sealed, and the fumes will go in here, go through the charcoal media, and back out through this one to the front to be reburned. Whenever you turn your engine off, 12 volts is dropped off of this, which opens it. And so at this point, all of this section is closed because the engine is off. This is open because the power is off. So the vent fumes comes in here, goes through the charcoal media, and comes out through here, up into this chamber to be released through this hose on this chamber out to atmosphere. There's a lot of dust in here. So if I stop this hole up and I blow into the large one, the vent coming from the tank, I had dust blow up out of here. Now I kept on, I'm not going to put water inside of this. But I kept blowing on it, and there's just no resistance. I can blow through this right here and release this, and there's no air comes out. So it's not building any pressure inside. So let me hold this one, blow on this one, and hold this one just to kind of see what I get on that. Yeah, it's just there's just no resistance. I can't even hold the air well enough on that. But I can, let's see, conceivably pop this in there. And let's do this. Obviously, it's not sealing off because there's no valve in here. And you know I'm a goober because I told you I'm a goober. There's one little dribble of water in there, but not much. So anyway, this canister is not stopped up. I'm super happy because you can find these for like $60 online, and they want $30 shipping, or you $75 and it's free shipping. So you can find these used. And that's the only test you need to do. You need to make sure you close off the small hose going to or on yours, whatever style you have. This is applicable to all of them. Not all of them is going to have a removable chamber. A lot of times you're going to have an inlet from the tank, an outlet to the engine, and an outlet going to the atmosphere controlled by a solenoid. So you're going to have three. And usually the smaller one is going to be the one going towards the engine. The larger one is going to be the one coming from the tank, and then the other one is going to be offset somewhere on here going to atmosphere. So I'm going to set this to the side because we really don't need it at the moment. And go back to this. Now I've got to finish drying this out before I put it back together, so I just kind of got to let this go. I may put some air on here to blow through it really good. So here's what I've checked so far. So I changed the valve. The old valve solenoid is working, but I don't know, because I was very surprised to find that the charcoal chamber was not stopped up. Now the only line that I haven't been able to check, now there's the line going towards the front of the truck, which is the reburning the vapors, but even if that's stopped up, it doesn't matter. That just makes the truck run different, or vehicle of any kind. But it doesn't cause your nozzle to click off repeatedly. The only thing that causes the not fill nozzle to click off is when it's full, or when it thinks it's full. And when it thinks it's full is when the air can't get out of the tank, and the back pressure builds up enough that kicks the fuel nozzle off. So when it's like a kind of it's a balanced reed valve in there, and when the pressures on both sides get close enough, the spring pressure on the reed valve closes it, and it kicks the pump off. And there's a back pressure that from that kicks around to slam it shut. They're complicated, but they work anyway. So you're not getting your tank vented is why you can't fill it. So this is one of the potential reasons, this solenoid being stuck closed, not open, but closed. If the solenoid is stuck closed, that's your problem. You take it out and you look at this, and there are going to be different styles, different ways. But basically, if there is a hose, a valve hole or whatever coming off of it, and it's not powered and you can't blow through it, it's stuck closed. So you should, if this has a hose barb or whatever coming off of it for a hose to stick to, and you can't blow through it when it's unplugged, it needs to be replaced. Then this right here, if you have the style that I have and it's got this chamber here, make sure you can blow through it and it's cleaned out. And so I think mine is a combination of all of these things. That this right here had a bunch of dust in it. There's a bunch of dust built up into the charcoal canister. And so here's the deal. The only way for dust to get in there is back through the original vent line. If you'll remember, when I took the original one off, it was some kind of dusty. And it works. I mean, I could put it back on. But you can see how dusty all of this stuff up in here is. In just a short period of time I had this on there, it got dusty. And so the only thing, and potentially, I don't know, this could be bleeding by maybe, and that's sucking dust up in there. I don't really know. But it was a lot of dust. And so that's really the only thing I can find. But what's gonna allow that is for the vent going to atmosphere to allow dust to come back through the system, filling this chamber up, and going up into the other part of the chamber. And it could be that sometimes this did not close, which that could potentially be another issue why there's so much dust and stuff up in here. And so when the engine kicks in, when the smaller pipe on there is pulling vapors forward to be reburnt, it's putting a vacuum on this chamber, so it's drawing from this chamber, and it has to suck in somewhere. So it's only wanting vapors, so it shouldn't be drawing from external atmosphere. So once it's drawn off the excess vapors, it should allow this to open back up. That forward solenoid shut off, and it's not drawing vapors in anywhere. But if this is sticking open, then it could be drawing all the dust and debris coming in through the atmosphere vent, through this hose, through this filter, through this right here, and then into the charcoal filter. And so blowing backwards through the charcoal filter could potentially, because there's a lot of dust come out of there. And so I think my problem's going to be fixed. So this right here, if it is stuck closed, then it's going to make it hard for you to fill your tank. If it's stuck open, then it's going to be drawing vapors from outside atmosphere, dust, debris, in other words, into the charcoal filter. And it probably will make your truck run bad, I would think. And so that's the only things that I can imagine that. Man, sure hope I can get all that dried out quick enough. That's the only things that I can imagine that's going to be an issue. The only thing, like I said, that I can't check reliably is the vent hose going back to the tank itself. I was able to blow in it a little bit, and it did blow, and I do smell gas fumes since I've unhooked it. So I know that there is fumes. So just to kind of recap, I believe my problem is fixed. This, although it does close when I put 12 volts on it, it may sometimes stick shut. That could be a potential issue with that one. So I'm going to leave the new one on there is the one I'm going to go with. And I'm probably going to take and put a little bit of silicone grease on these fittings right here, these O-rings, so they'll slip back into place good. But to kind of explain to you what I was getting at about this, if you'll notice, there's a ridge of teeth around this, which these will mate up into. And so you can see that you got just a little bit of a turn there that you need to make. So you fit it up in here like this, about that location. If you look up in here, you'll see that as you turn it a little bit, it seats into spot. So that's the only way you can push it in. At this point, it takes a good bit of force to push it in, and this O-ring will seat on this shoulder. And once it's seated, then you can turn this easily, and it's back at this position right here. So you don't want to force it. You get this up in there, push it in, you spin it. If you can't spin it, you need to push it further in until you can spin it, and it's only maybe a quarter of a turn. So you're like going in here. Yeah, well, nope. You're going in here, and then you're going to spin it to, or going in here and spinning it to here. I don't know. Yeah, probably more like that right there. You probably go in about there and spin it to there. But when I get this dried out, I'll try to come back online and film pushing it back in there. But I got to dry this chamber out, make sure it's completely dried out. Then I'll show you putting it back in. It just basically snaps into place. You can see here that there's 2 pegs here and 2 pegs here that snap this assembly right there. I think you can see, would be moving that all around. But this whole assembly will snap into place like this on the top of it. And then this will be in here like this, or this. I don't remember. It just depends on the vehicle orientation. I'll have to look at it again to see how, once I get it put back in, I can tell you. But I do believe that was pointing down towards the bottom, but it'll snap into place anywhere. You can, it doesn't matter, just as long as you get it snapped into place. So I'm gonna come up with a way to check the, and you can still see that there's some dust build up there at the end of the pipe. That whitish looking, that's dust that's built up in there. So again, like I said, I think my problem's gone, because I think the issue is not the vapor canister being stopped up, but the dust and stuff that was sucked up into this little pre-filter, very porous pre-filter, and inside the chamber. So, but everything's clear, everything's doing good now. I think I'll take them useless oil can, catch can hoses, and try to adapt one of them to plug up into the vent on the gas tank and blow back through it to confirm that it's open. Now there is somewhat of a resistance, and that's the only place that I've found a resistance, is the filler neck, the line that comes off of here. Like I said, when I blew down through it just a while ago, a lot of dust just boiled all around down there on the far end. And so I'm wondering, because the hose terminates to a little plastic rod with a cap on it. So I think is supposed to try to help keep some of the dust and stuff from coming through. But there may be a pre-filter or some form of a porous charcoal filter in there as well, because I can blow in it and I'll hear, I don't have a problem blowing with my lungs, you know, that's saying something, but I don't have a problem blowing down through the hose, but I can hear a whistle down there. And so there is, like this, I feel no resistance. The can, I feel no resistance. But blowing back through the vent hose, there is a mild resistance, not much. But I think all of that tied together was enough to cause the filler to kick out ever so often. So anyway, let's get this dried out, and we will be right back. Okay, so here we are. We're going to see about getting this back into place. So this piece goes into this end right here. And it snaps into place. You got little pegs here on each side. Now, if your truck, if you have any concerns that these might be dry rotted, be very, very, very careful. Your only sealing point is the O-ring that's going down into this chamber. So you don't want to snap these off. If you did end up snapping them off, you'd end up having to try to put some kind of tie wrap to hold this into place. So this sets down in there, and it slips into this ring right here. And I don't know if you can see that. And then this large shoulder sets on into this larger section. So kind of put it into place where you're going to need it. Line your snaps up and press it down. Got one side snapped in, and now we got the other side snapped in, and now it is back into business the way it was originally meant for business. So this, you can see these lines. This is towards the back of the truck, and then you have the front section towards the front of the truck. And then here's your door over here, and then here's your frame. This slips like underneath and behind the frame of the truck. And these pieces right here, they will slip in a slot and slide back, and then you can put all your bolts in. And so then you have a line from the front that comes down and 90s around and slips into this one. Then you have the large line from the fuel tank that comes back and goes straight into this one. And then this one also comes around, but it's a corrugated hose that slips above the fuel tank and goes back to the atmosphere vent. And then this solenoid right here in that orientation is going to fit in here like this. So this will be facing out forward from the frame of the vehicle. So to put this in, you want to set this in kind of, so here we got, I felt it pop down, so let's push it in. And if you'll notice, it slid down. Now it's not gonna slide if those prongs aren't into position. Now watch this. Now it's snapped into place. Okay, if it's not that easy to push it over and snap it into place, you don't have it pushed all the way down and you're going to break something. So make sure that it's slipped, and it's just barely at the 1 o'clock position. You'll slip it in. It'll seat down. You won't see anything of the O-ring. Spin it just a quarter turn, and you're good to go. It's in place. It's locked up, and I can put my electrical back on this right here. Okay, so this is the vent line or vent valve that was on the top of my tank. So Ford F-150 2015 model 2.7 liter EcoBoost has one of these on top of the tank. And so if you've tried everything and you still can't put fuel in your truck, this is the problem. It was mine. Let's see. I've got 12 volts set on the power supply and 1/2 amp. Let me see if I can get this clipped on. If I remember, I think the left side was 9 volt. I mean, grounds. So it's pulling every bit of that 1/2 amp. Let's go back the other way. So let's go up to 750 milliamps. See, that way it's pulling 4 volts, 3. Yeah. 4 volts, 3 amps. So it's a 12 volt solenoid. It's only pulling 4 volts at 1/2 amp, and you should hear clicking. And that's the thing. If you try to blow through here, you can't blow through this solenoid. And so this is the part that connects to the charcoal canister. So just as a point of information, you got this section right here. Actually, this connects to the charcoal canister, and then you have this connection here right at the tank. So if you pull, and this is a clip that's tying your fuel line from the tank up forward to your fuel rail on your engine. So if you pull this off of your charcoal canister, and I believe I've got that in the video that I need to put this in with, I shoved a little hose up in here and tried to blow, and I could not blow back through this line. And so that this line, you should be able to blow into this line. It should be open because this valve is, like I said, it's the vent line on top of the tank. So in this state, no power, this should be open. Now, what is confusing is the error, which is P2450, if I'm not mistaken. What is that? EVAP valve open, stuck open. I think that is what that code means. It's confusing because when this is stuck open, it's actually closed. So you can't blow air through it. Whenever it is, I guess, closed, then it's open for you to blow air through. That doesn't make sense, I know, but the code says EVAP valve stuck open. And when it's resting with no power, you should be able to blow through it. This one you can't blow through, or you can just barely blow through without power on it. When you get power on it, it should close the mechanism so that you can't blow air through it, only when it's powered. And so what this valve does is when you start your engine, this is not necessarily going to, block airflow. It just does whenever your system runs a test on your tank to check for pressure. And you also, off of this section, there's a kind of a horseshoe section that goes around to the fuel pump, which you've got this valve over here, your fuel pump will be like right over here. And so this will loop around to here. And in the top side of this loop, there's actually a sensor, which is a pressure sensor. So this valve right here will, I'm just going to call it open and close. I'm not worried about the power state of it. But when this physically opens up, it allows vapors to come back through here and go into your charcoal canister. And then you've got another vent valve, solenoid, that is in the charcoal canister that can open or close. And if it blocks flow, then everything is, and this is open, then it's allowing vapors out of your tank through your charcoal filter, and they're going forward to the purge valve at the top of the engine to go into the intake and to be reburnt. Now, I guess if the pressure sensor doesn't show pressure when this runs a test, then this right here is going to close back off again. Because it doesn't need to bleed any of the vapors off of the tank. And so whenever I tried to fill my tank, I'd get about a gallon-ish, and it would kick off because the pressure in the tank would build up because this was, closed up, not allowing vapors to go through. So I couldn't fill my tank up. So and that's one of the reasons why you go in. Let me turn my power supply off. That's one of the reasons why you go in at the gas station and you turn your key off. If you don't turn your key off and you're there and it runs the purge cycle, then your pump's going to kick off like you're full, and you're not, because the pressure builds up because this right here closes off for it to go through its process. So with your key turned off, this loses power. It automatically opens the valve and allows vapors to come from here back through the line to the charcoal canister. And that valve that solenoid is normally open whenever the power is off. So you have a direct line to the atmosphere. The air in the tank comes through this valve right here, goes back to the charcoal canister, goes through the charcoal canister, back out the vent valve in the charcoal canister, and back through a line that comes up right by the fuel filler neck and vents. And so that's where the air is actually coming out of your tank. When you're done filling, you pull the nozzle out, and your capless filler neck should close up, and it's a seal, so that you'll have pressure when it builds up in your tank. The sensor sees the pressure. This valve right here will open back up, allowing vapors to come back through. Only this time your engine is running, so instead of opening the vent valve on the charcoal canister, it leaves it closed so that the vapors are in the charcoal canister going through the other line, of course, up to the purge valve underneath the hood, which it will, by however the black magic works, open up and push those vapors into the intake. I hope that's clear as mud. It's so many times things are clear in my head, but they come out of my mouth as confusing as I don't know what. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you. Whereas if your engine is running and the pressure sensor back here doesn't see any pressure, then this line will just stay closed. This valve will stay closed, and nothing happens. And what can happen, and this is why you do not want to continuously top your tank off, because I've got this bent just to fit on the bench, but that is actually how it goes on top of the tank. And this lays flat. It goes, and you can see that this is kind of dog-leg down, because that goes down into a little valley into the tank and eventually out the front side of the tank. And so the way this is set up is when you fill your tank completely full of fuel, it'll actually back up through that line into this valve, and you'll have fuel instead of just vapor. You'll have actual raw fuel in here, which will mess this valve up, and most likely is what happened. And this is the first item that will actually go bad. If this opens up while your tank is that full, and the fuel will back up through this line. And you probably got to do it enough times for enough fuel to get in here to make it all the way back to the charcoal canister. But if it eventually does that, then what you're going to have is you're going to have fuel inside of your charcoal canister, which will ruin it, and potentially the solenoid valve that's inside of that part of it. And so that's why you don't want to top your tank off. Whenever it clicks as full, you're done. Quit. That's enough. Enough said. It's over. Quit. Because if you don't, fuel can get in here, and that will ruin this. When you change this, that will ruin your day. This line is $300 and something for this. Now, I got this for like, I think 70 on eBay used. I found a used one, and that's what I used. And so if you're lucky enough to find it. Now, people that know what they cost in real time, try to make you pay an arm and a leg on eBay. And so it is what it is there. But you keep looking, you'll find a decent deal. And somebody will start trying to do an honest deal with you. The number that is on here is DU5A-9G712-CB. And then there's a 1736P there. And here is a F903A. And then this is just in such bad shape that there's no readable numbers. Now, I do have numbers on all this stuff, and I will post it. Now, the setup that I found, and it was, like I said, $70 or something. This is the actual fuel line for your engine that runs, and this part right here runs, basically, this is the back of the tank. Then this runs forward, connects into a plastic line right by the charcoal canister, and goes on forward. Now, when I disconnected this line right here, which you have to drop your tank. Now, I didn't drop the whole tank, just the front side down. And that gave me enough room to get my hand up in there and to do stuff. So, this line right here will hold pressure. My truck sat there for 3 days. And I broke this line loose, pulled it back, fuel spewed back in my eyes, my face, and everywhere. So be aware of that. This will hold pressure. Now, it's not a lot of pressure, but it will hold pressure. When you take this completely loose, then fuel's going to drain out from the fuel rail of the truck all the way back. So put you something under there to catch it. But once it's caught X amount of fuel, then it'll stop and it's done and over with. And then this right here, you don't need to really mess with. And this piece right here is just a secondary piece that goes from the end of this main line. This is just a junction, kind of like this right here is. You know, I can pop these clips right here, push forward and up like that. That piece comes up like that, and then the line pops out. So that's how these fittings work. And these fittings right here are kind of the same way. You'll push these two tabs right here on it. You'll push them in and up, and that will pop this piece up, and you can pull the line loose. Put it back together, snap it in, and it's locked into place. Now, this is the same fitting that you will have up here. So let me just kind of in there, and then that will slap down and click in. Now, there is another fitting that may be at this point, and let's see, it's not that one. Here we go. This is the fitting right here. So this is the one that goes on this end of it. It's clicked into place. You have to push on each side. You can see here and here. You have to push in, push it forward, and then you can pull it back and it comes out. Now, chances are you'll probably have this fitting on this end right here. As a matter of fact, I remember now, it wasn't this fitting here. It was that fitting I just showed you that was connected here. So what I did is you have 3 points. You have like right here, then right here, because there's a cross member that goes over here, over the top of the tank. You have a clip here, and then you have another clip up here. And then this is the hardest one. You have a clip that's a double clip. It's around here and here at the same time. So all of these back through here are pretty easy to snap out, snap this line out. This one is really hard. Now, while this is still snapped into place, don't undo it yet. Come up here, get this piece loose, and you can push that off the side. You're good. Don't worry about it. This clip right here, you can see there is and hopefully I can zoom in that you can see. So try to zoom in here. So there's a tab that you will lift up like right here, you'll lift that tab up and it'll come off that little tit that's right here. And then you can pull this whole thing back. And you really need this still locked into place so you can pull that up and pull the whole thing back. Be careful not to pull on the cord because you will yank the wires out. You have these two little tabs on each side, but they don't do anything that I know of because the fitting goes up to about here, and that's the end of it. Now, this is getting this piece off right here. This wire connection was the hardest thing that I had to do. Once it was done, now I did it with this whole thing snapped loose. So I snapped these two pieces, this out of the double clip, and this was all just moving around up there, and that made it really hard for me. Worst case scenario, you may want to just take and grab the backside here and, flip this up like that, but leave this clipped. And that'll give you better access to get in here and pull this up and pull it back. Now, I didn't drop my axle or drive shaft. I did it with the drive shaft in there. I just pulled the front strap towards the engine compartment on the fuel tank and dropped the fuel tank down as far as it would go. I left the jack underneath there to hold it in place so all the pressure wasn't on the filler neck. If you loosen up the the bolt that's on the filler neck, you can probably drop it down a little bit more, but be careful because you got 3 other wired connections with your fuel pump, pressure sensor, and something else. Or maybe there's 2 lines going to the fuel pump. But regardless, you don't want to pull that stuff loose. So just be careful about how far you drop your tank. And really, that's the issues that I had. Once I had all of this took out, it was a little bit of a devil to try to, weave this in and out to get it out of the top of the tank. But it wasn't too bad. It was probably harder to get the new one back up in there. If the tank was down maybe an inch further, it would have been easy to get this out and easy to put the new one in. And again, the hardest part, once I got this fitting loose right here, was getting the wire connection off of it. And if I'd have left this in the clip, then that would have been a lot easier for me to do. So that's basically it. There's only 3 things. If you're having problems filling your vehicle with a Ford F-150 2015 model anyway, there's only 3 things it could be. This valve, the valve that is on the charcoal canister, or the charcoal canister is stopped up. Now I got another video on the charcoal canister itself. This right here is the actual valve for the charcoal canister right here. And you may have already released that video, I'm not sure. This is actually a good valve, but so I got to back up. But this valve right here is the one for the charcoal canister, that if this right here closes or opens, which in fact is closing, then the vapors cannot leave out. If this right here is stuck in not this position with this little plunger forward, then it's going to click off. And you're probably going to be able to put more fuel in it than I could, because you got all of this line right here to fill up with pressure before it backs up, and plus your charcoal canister. If you wait a little bit, then you can probably put a couple gallons in again. But as it turned out, it was this valve right here, which is right close to the tank. And so I couldn't put very much fuel before I had to wait a little bit and start it going again. And I couldn't tell how full it was because I was just constantly clicking it to keep filling up to get it, get the tank full. Your time is very important to me, and I thank you for spending it here with me. Thanks, and God bless.